In 2004 on the Australian coast, researchers found a tracking tag they previously attached to a giant 3-meter white shark. They wanted to trace the migration of marine animals, but found something nobody was prepared to see. The device showed that at some point the shark suddenly went to a depth of 580 m, as if some unknown force dragged the giant predator down to the bottom. Then its temperature rose to 25.5 degrees Celsius. At such ocean depths, it can be so hot only inside something's stomach. It seems that some mysterious predator is lurking on the ocean floor. But who or what could swallow a great white shark? And if this beast feeds on sharks, it's really scary to think what it could do to a human. So, what kind of Australian monster is killing the giant fearsome fish right now? Music. Scientists call the white female shark they've chosen as an object of study Alpha. She became a part of large-scale research. In 2003, an experiment was conducted in Australia. Scientists placed special tags on the dorsal fins of great white sharks. They did this to track their movements using GPS and collect data on temperature and other parameters. Alpha got her name mainly because of her massive size, as she was 3 m long. Although the biggest females of the species can grow up to even 6 m in length. That's like 5 German shepherds in a row. Moreover, the weight of such sharks can reach up to 2,300 kilograms. One of these giant fish was filmed and featured in Shark Week. The show's creators affectionately nicknamed it Deep Blue. But it turned out that even these figures are not the limit. According to the Guinness Book of Records, one of the largest white sharks ever found was 11 m long, and it was caught in the 1870s off Alpha's home continent, Australia. Okay, compared to shark champions and some other underwater inhabitants, Alpha isn't the biggest fish out there. But despite its size, the white shark can be rightfully called the most ferocious predator in the ocean. That's why scientists were very surprised to find Alpha's tag wash ashore several months after the experiment had begun. The most confusing detail was that the device was corroded by gastric acid. Could there be something able to stand against such a menacing beast? Usually, sharks aren't prepared to deal with dangers because if anything is dangerous in the ocean, that would be them. The thing is, white sharks have a lot of advantages that make them brilliant hunters. Their first super skill is a heightened sense of smell. The fish can detect a victim from huge distances away, especially if the victim's already wounded. Just 1 drop of blood per 100 L of water is enough to attract attention. Secondly, white sharks have the ability to react to electrical currents of around 5,000 of a microvolt. That's enough to sense a beating heart of a scadefish. Thirdly, incredible hearing. Wounded prey or spawning fish can make rapid sounds intermittently throbbing at frequencies below 600 Hz. And sharks on the prowl will hear them from more than 1.5 kilometers away. And most importantly, the row of fluid-filled sensory canals on either side of a shark's body respond to pressure changes and movements, which help the animal feel the presence of objects moving in the water. All of these facts leave scientists speechless. So, that begs the question, if Alpha was so naturally talented, how could she fail to notice the approach of another predator, let alone fail to protect herself? After all, great white sharks are known to be ruthless to their prey. Furthermore, they mostly choose big opponents like seals or sea lions. Thanks to its streamlined body and powerful tail, a white shark is capable of moving at 60 kilometers per hour. If the victim is cruising close to the surface, the shark can vertically jump out of the water with its jaws open and grab the prey. This predator has more than 300 serrated triangular teeth, each 5 centimeters long. That's 2.5 times longer than human teeth. On top of that, there are 5 or 6 rows of teeth inside a shark's mouth, which lets it immediately pierce the victim's flesh and rip it apart. The front teeth do the most damage because they are the largest. Just like all their relatives, great white sharks have a spare set of teeth. So if the front ones are shed and need replacement, new teeth pop up from behind. Therefore, these huge fish are always equipped with razor-sharp weapons. By the way, among marine animals with the strongest bite, a white shark takes second place, 400 pounds per square inch. That's why it's so tough to imagine a beast able to challenge such a versatile hunting machine and defeat it. The Smithsonian Institute hired a filmmaker, David Riggs, to document the tracking project built around the 3M female shark. When he obtained the tag data, Riggs was as amazed as the scientists. At that moment, he realized he was going to create not a popular science video, but footage of a full-fledged investigation similar to a crime drama with horror elements. Dave was beyond excited and was already planning an expedition to the kill zone, where Alpha supposedly spent the last seconds of her life. However, the filmmaker would soon regret his decision and realize the kill zone got its name for a reason. It's very difficult to think of something able to kill a shark since most people associate this creature with fearlessness and as being a lethal threat. But in truth, sharks can even be afraid of such harmless animals as birds. For example, gulls, pelicans, or albatrosses. They can attack a shark with their claws and beaks if they find the fish too close to the surface. You're not going to believe this, but sharks can also be seriously frightened of buffalo. Yes, the chance of their encounter is actually low, but if a buffalo happens to be close to the shore and a shark happens to be hunting nearby, the bison can scare it away with its low growling. But there has to be something more intimidating behind Alpha's death, and Dave Riggs firmly decided to find the truth. Together with his team, he wanted to go down to the kill zone bottom of the south coast of Australia. For this, the team used a special big cage that took them all the way down. It was made of a strong metal frame and parts of a lawnmower. And in addition, the entire construction was covered with 5 layers of fiberglass for greater security. The kill zone is a vast underwater valley stretching 5 kilometers to the ocean floor. All this area is teeming with wildlife. The thing is that the cracks at the bottom release a mixture of gases heated by magma. They raise the temperature in the valley and attract thousands of marine species that become the long-awaited dinner for hungry predators. Dave was determined to travel to the valley floor to find a clue that would lead him to the murder of the 3M white shark. But at a depth of 20 m, his passion quickly faded. That's because the team members found themselves surrounded not by 1 or 2, but 40 whale sharks. Shortly after that, a part of other aquatic predators also smelled the humans. The team didn't dare descend any farther because of the risk of getting attacked, so they returned to the surface. Dave, however, still managed to catch a glimpse of the main suspects. They were orcas, also known as killer whales due to their brutality and enormous size. If Alpha was attacked by a male orca, it could be twice the size of the shark. The most enormous killer whale ever recorded reached almost 10 m in length and weighed over 10 tons. That's like 2 African elephants. Although an orca has fewer teeth than a white shark, only 48, each of them is twice as long. So orcas can tear apart the bodies of larger-sized victims. While seals and sea lions are a lavish feast for sharks, killer whales see them as snacks that can be swallowed in one go. David Briggs and other researchers don't exclude the possibility that orcas were hunting Alpha. They could also consider the shark an enemy dangerous to their calves. But something doesn't add up here. Killer whales always hunt near the surface and rarely go deeper than 100 m to find food. Well, the creature that fought with Alpha dragged her to very deep waters. Besides, orca's body temperature is almost identical to that of humans, around 37.8 degrees Celsius. As you remember, Alpha's tracking device got heated to only 25 degrees. But if it wasn't an orca, what could it be? Maybe a sperm whale. It's one of the largest whales in the world, able to grow up to 20 m, which is 6.6 times bigger than Alpha and as heavy as 6.6 African elephants. Such a giant predator can dive to even greater depth than what scientists saw in Alpha's tag, to around 2,500 meters. Sperm whales use echolocation to focus on a search for potential victims. They send out high-frequency clicks, the loudest sound produced by any animal on Earth. This way, sperm whales deter other predators like orcas from coming close to their prey while leaving the prey disoriented. Their massive tails can kill absolutely any sea creature. That could have been what happened to poor Alpha. But this version also has many inconsistencies. Usually, white sharks are not part of a sperm whale's diet, as it mainly feeds on cephalopods, including giant squids. In addition, a sperm whale size doesn't let it make swift and sharp movements, meaning it couldn't suddenly drag Alpha to the depths recorded by a tracking device. But wait, an orca and a sperm whale are not the only suspects. There is another giant creature hiding in the ocean south of Australia. It's so dangerous that people are still unsure if it's a real animal or a mythical monster. It's hard to resist shivers running down your spine once you see a colossal squid. Representatives of the species are confirmed to reach a mass of around 500 kilograms, although judging by their beaks found in the guts of sperm whales. Some of these squids can be far heavier, approximately 700 kilograms, which is like 2½ grizzly bears. The maximum total length of this squid is 10 m, and that's 2 times longer than Alpha's body. Besides, the gigantic mollusk is just as good at hunting as white sharks. Having spotted a victim, it first rushes forward by flapping its huge fins. Then, the squid uses its 2-meter tentacles and hooks on their club-shaped ends to grab and hold future dinner so that it can't escape. Then 8 tentacles equipped with lots of suckers assist the animal in lifting the struggling prey to the beak. It's very sharp and immediately slices through the flesh, ripping it into small pieces. Scientists consider it a likely suspect in the case of Alpha's murder. Colossal squids live at a depth of 600 m, or exactly where the tracking tag recorded the shark's death. And yet, researchers doubt that one of them could cause Alpha's death. Actually, in most cases, it's a squid that becomes a victim of the predator fish. Although, in 2020 in the Pacific Ocean, which by the way also borders Australia, a shark was found with squid tentacle marks all around its carcass. Presumably, Alpha could have been hunting a squid, chasing it into deep waters, but eventually lost a fight and was devoured. If so, her opponent must have been much larger than what we call a colossal squid. Ages ago, ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle mentioned in his works a certain sea serpent whose head was the size of a barrel, and whose arms were 5 cubits long. In the 13th century in Iceland, there were rumors about an ocean creature that could gobble up an entire Viking fleet. On top of all this, in 1752, Danish bishop and naturalist Erik Pontippidan documented a number of statements from people who witnessed attacks of the horrible beast that was popularized as a kraken. According to them, this creature easily brought warships mounted with cannons down to the bottom by wrapping its enormous tentacles around masts. When ships sank, the kraken ate the people and then needed 3 months to digest them. The monster always moved around accompanied by countless fish that were allowed to have leftovers from its terrible lunch for themselves. That's why fishermen were often happy to find places promising a good catch, not even suspecting what kind of monster was around. In 1774, English Captain Robert Jameson said under sworn testimony that he'd seen this creature with his own eyes and that it was 9 m tall and 2.5 km long, or in other words, 833 alphas. In the 20th century, stories about the kraken were considered silly tales invented by cowardly sailors with poor eyesight. However, in the 21st century, scientists found indirect evidence of the existence of the kraken. Japanese ichthyologists filmed a living underwater that reached 26.5 m in length. A creature this size could wrap its tentacles around a hole and drag the ship to the ocean floor together with the people on board. Then quite recently, there was a new sensation. For the first time, the giant squid was captured on video in U.S. waters. In U.S. waters, researchers managed to capture a colossal squid on camera. This sparked societal concerns. Could the bloodthirsty kraken be not a fictional animal, but a real thing? What happened to Alpha might be just another proof of that. But there's one but in this story. Though, according to the shark's tracking tag, the creature that mauled it was warm-blooded, while colossal squid are cold-blooded. It turns out that after studying the vast oceans, we can only conclude that a predator able to attack the great white shark that awful day doesn't exist, at least now. In prehistoric times, marine animals were much larger and much more dangerous. But all of them have long become extinct. Unless they haven't. Just look at this mind-blowing footage of a giant shark. Some people believe that the animal caught in this video is a megalodon pup. This prehistoric monster that went extinct about 2.5 million years ago was an ancient ancestor of white sharks. What you see on the screen is a megalodon tooth compared to a tooth of a present-day white shark. It's the size of an adult human palm as its length reaches 18 centimeters. Furthermore, the tooth is very thick and has lots of fine serrations. Now, try to imagine a mouth with 276 such teeth in 5 rows. Thus, the animal itself has to be of colossal proportions. Scientists assume that the megalodon could grow up to 13 m in length. That's more than 10 sharks like Alpha. Its bite force was equivalent to a falling cruise ship's anchor that could weigh as much as 11 tons. This predator could chew through giant turtles, dolphins, and even whales. Scientists determined that due to its immense size, the megalodon's swimming speed could rise to 5 m per second, which is 2 times faster than any living shark can move underwater. When it spotted a victim, that monster rammed its head into the prey at full speed, breaking its bones and damaging the vital organs in the rib cage. The victim died within a few brief moments from internal injuries. The megalodon is thought to be the best hunter that ever inhabited the ocean. Modern scientists become deeply skeptical when they hear that the megalodon could possibly have avoided extinction because there's no way researchers wouldn't have already seen it if it had survived. In this case, the beast would probably be hunting with white sharks, its closest relatives. But scientists seem to have ignored the probability that megalodon may be committing assaults against sharks rather than with them. If so, it might well be the predator that violently attacked Alpha. Let me tell you about one final monster able to beat both the great white shark and even the megalodon. Just look at this tooth. It's almost 2 times bigger than that of the megalodon. It belongs to Leviathan melville, a prehistoric monster whale that existed around 12 million years ago. It was a bit smaller than megalodon, just 17.5 m in length. At the same time, its head was wide and short, which let the animal have an incredibly strong bite. Leviathan's teeth were deeply embedded in the jawbones and could seize prey with a death grip. But most importantly, this tooth was found in Melbourne, Australia. I mean, in the same waters where Alpha lived. This tooth rested on the ocean floor for millions of years, and it can't belong to a currently living animal. It cannot serve as proof that Leviathan melville hasn't become extinct. But even modern equipment doesn't let us explore all the ocean trenches and cracks in the bottom, so we can't confidently claim otherwise either. That's why I'd advise Australian sailors to be extremely careful when they leave for the open ocean. Who knows what might be there to drag them down? Researchers together with Dave Riggs and his team eventually arrived at a very boring conclusion. According to them, Alpha was probably killed by another great white shark. You see, cannibalism is quite common for this species. And when scientists tracked the migration of great white sharks, they saw that the animals moved through the region where Alpha died. However, temperature data recorded by the tag disproves this theory. It cannot be hotter than 21 degrees Celsius inside a shark's stomach. While Alpha's temperature in her last moments of life spiked to 25 degrees, experts have a special hypothesis to explain this oddity. They think bigger sharks can have a bit higher body temperature due to their size. That sounds like a hastily made-up science fact, doesn't it? Share your thoughts in the comments.